Mill's views on representative government. Mill, in his book Considerations on Representative Government, 1861, proposed two criteria for good government. First, the government must use the capacities and skills of the citizens for the common good. Second, the government must improve the moral and intellectual qualities of the citizens. Mill examined the efficacy of a despotic government and a representative democracy in fulfilling the above two criteria. He observed that a wise despot who did everything for his citizens deprived them of the opportunity to develop their capacities, resulting in passive citizens. He also held that despotism was a legitimate mode of government to deal with barbarians and to ready them for civilizational development, while in a representative democracy, citizens have the right to select representatives, and the discussions held in Parliament increase the intelligence, virtue, and energy of the citizens. Thus, according to Mill, representative democracy is the best form of government because it organized the capacities of the citizens as well as in the most effective way used the capacities for the common good. He held that the ideally best form of government is one in which the supreme power is vested in the entire aggregate of the community. He realized that in a numerically small and homogeneous community, every citizen can participate in public affairs. But in modern territorial states with vast territories and huge population, there is no other alternative except to choose representative democracy, ruled by chosen representatives. Mill advocated representative democracy only for those states where people were educated, rational, noble, and virtuous. That is, he favored it for developed nations and not for colonial and backward nations. Mill's views on proportional representation. In a representative democracy, a party which secures majority in the legislature secures power. As a result, the minorities suffer due to under or no representation at all. In his book, Representative Government, Mill championed for proportional representation because he believed that without it, no representative government can be complete. Mill held that adoption of proportional representation will provide representation to all sections of the people proportionately, eliminate injustice to the majorities and minorities, as well as prevent the tyranny of the majority. As a result, the legislature would reflect the true public opinion of the people. Mill's views on right to vote. Mill opposed the principle of one man, one vote because he rejected the idea that individuals were all equally enlightened, capable and strong. Though he stood for adult suffrage, He believed that inequalities must be recognized. He held that people of greater intelligence should manage public affairs. Therefore, Mill emphasized that a voter should at least be able to read, write, and perform arithmetic. Thus, it was clear that Mill was not in favor of political equality but in favor of intellectual aristocracy. He advocated the system of plural voting as a counterpoise to the numerical weight of the least educated. Mill's views on plural voting. In Thoughts on Parliamentary Reform, Mill recommended plural or weighted voting on the grounds that, first, educated voters should be allowed more choice in electing representatives on the ground that such persons have more knowledge applicable to the affairs of the community. Second, had a low estimation of the capacity of the uneducated person. He referred to the uneducated as superstitiously attached to old forms and usages, as eager to clutch at whatever they have not and others have, and as incapable of conceiving the rights of others. He proposed a system in which the value of the vote of every person should be proportionate to their level of education. That is, a lawyer, physician, surgeon, literary man, artist require accurate and systematic mental cultivation should have 6 votes, while a farmer, manufacturer, trader require the power of guiding and attending to a number of various operations at once should have 3 or 4 votes. Mill believed that plural voting would provide the educated voters a balance between numbers and education, as well as promote the well-being of society, prevent unaccountability by the majority, and prevent political disasters. Mill felt that political disaster in France could have been avoided if the voters could read and write. But unfortunately, millions of voters who made Louis Napoleon the president were peasants who could neither read nor write. Later, in considerations on representative government, Mill recognized that although unable to control the majority, the minority do have influence in Parliament because they put forward better arguments and resist the ascendancy of the majority. Mill held that if the minority and the majority were made answerable to society for their acts, they could be controlled. Mill's views on women's suffrage. The Victorian laws and the assumption of natural inferiority prevented equal opportunity for the development of women. Mill advocated in treating men and women on equal terms. He believed that sex should not be the base for disqualification of enjoyment of franchise. Mill held that if there was difference, women require it more than men, since being physically weaker and are dependent on law and society for protection. He, as a member of parliament, tabled the women's suffrage amendment demanding enfranchisement for women, but was defeated by 194 votes to 73 votes. Mill's views on public voting. Mill observed that secret voting led people to exercise their right to vote in an irresponsible manner. To avoid irresponsibility and wastage of votes, he favored open or public voting because he believed that in public voting, common man will be guided by wiser persons in society. Mill held that voting was not a right but a trust. Therefore, voting should be done with a sense of responsibility where people should think of the general interest instead of personal advantage. Thus, he held that voting should be performed under the eye and criticism of the public. Mill's views on Parliament and State. First, political authority. Mill held that all political authority should be vested in the House of Commons. Second, House of Lords. Mill suggested that the House of Lords should be entrusted with the power to draft bills because it represents the legal wisdom of the nation. Third, function of legislature. Mill asserted that the function of the legislature was to discuss, deliberate, supervise, and control the government and demand explanation and justification of their acts. Mill held that Parliament should not nominate members to the cabinet but can decide 2 or 3 individuals from whom the Prime Minister can be chosen. Mill also believed that legislation should be left to experts. Fourth, executive. Mill held that the executive should have monopoly over administration. Fifth, Mill rejected the idea of annual elections to Parliament. He felt that the term of Parliament should not be less than 5 years because a short term would make it weak and a long term would make it irresponsible. Sixth, efficiency of government. Mill opposed the system of payment to members of Parliament in order to maintain purity and efficiency of the government. Seventh, expenditure. Mill held the view that the expenditure incurred on the eve of elections should not be charged to the candidate. Eighth, active role of state. In later years of life, Mill accepted the fact that state needs to play a positive role in matters like education, industry, and working class. He believed that education should be provided to children irrespective of the parents' willingness or unwillingness. He wanted the state to regulate monopolistic public enterprises as well as enact laws to promote the well-being of the working class who were being exploited by capitalists.